Famcast Media, bitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, persons of all ages, welcome to the most exclusive group in the wrestling community. And now, your hosts, first, from Guadalajara, Puerto Rico, Macho Rodriguez, and his tag team partner from New Brunswick, Canada, God's King, Tyler.
¿Cómo estamos, mi gente? We are here tonight to discuss last night's SmackDown. It seems as if Tyler's having some technical difficulties. He's not on the screen yet, but it says he is there. He is muted, unfortunately. But I wanted to start with paying my condolences to Mr. Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. We will do a Bray Wyatt tribute show tomorrow before All In. But as for today, we're just going to simply stick to reviewing AEW Collision, giving our previews for tomorrow night's show. And I guess we'll get started right off the bat. What's going on, man? How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good, man. Just enjoying the day with my kids and watched The Flash today. That's on HBO Max now, so that's a kick-ass movie. I don't know why people don't like it, but I think it's a great movie.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know if he mentioned it while I was having technical difficulties. It's Feliz Cumpleaños.
Oh, I did not mention it.
My co-host here turned a very young 29. Is it today?
No, I wish 39 though. Pretty excited about it. Had some fun stuff with the kids. Got some cool gifts, and just kind of enjoyed the day.
Where's my cake, yo?
Where's your cake? I don't even know. Aren't you lactose intolerant?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. Joey doesn't share food. Oh, sorry. I thought you were a Friends fan. Sorry.
I am
anyway. Oh, okay.
That's why I laughed.
Actually, I do share food a lot, but with anybody, anytime. I just so weird. I always find that funny. But yeah, man. Why don't we jump right into SmackDown? So last night was the tribute show for Terry and for Mr. Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, and I want your honest opinion. What did you think? Yeah, I want your honest opinion. What did you think of the show?
Could not have been more underwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Was there a reason why you felt that way?
Yeah, I turned the show on, and the beginning is great where they're talking and they do the 10 bell salutes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get that far, then they proceed to kind of start the show like it's just a regular show, and we're in storylines, and Kevin Patrick says something about he talked to Rey Mysterio earlier in the day, and he talked about how he looked up to Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt, and I'm just like, Rey Mysterio's 20 years older than Bray Wyatt.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite, but you know what I mean.
I understand.
And also then there were just little things like it just seemed like a regular show. Like they put the trending number 1 in USA on X.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I think the worst for me was when Corey Graves was talking about how Bray. Everyone seems to talk about his laugh, and
Yeah.
Corey Graves was talking about it. And Patrick segued into, speaking of laughs, I wonder if Zelina Vega will have the last laugh against Io Sky tonight. I was just like, that's such poor taste.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, no, go finish up before I go. Go ahead.
I almost wonder if they tried hard not to produce the show as much, and it led to some gaffes like that, because like if there's a producer in your ear, you know to lay out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a great announcer, but I've never seen him be as bad as he was last night.
Yeah.
His first episode was the only time he's irritated me as bad as he did last night. It had its good points. I thought Cody spoke beautifully.
Yeah.
Really captivating. I thought LA Knight, although he stayed in character, still had a great little promo there at the end, little tribute. Beyond that, I just thought it was really underwhelming. I hate to be negative about something like this, but just I feel like they could have done more.
Yeah. So before I give my thoughts, full disclosure, Tyler and I wanted to do a Bray Wyatt tribute show, which we will be doing tomorrow morning, before the pay-per-view. But I just couldn't get the stink SmackDown off me. Like today, in the back of my mind, I knew I wasn't going to be able to fully invest into celebrating, but I knew, with Arthur and Jordan that, my babies, that I was going to be able to, like, at least close my mind off and just give them my full attention, which I was able to, and I contacted Tyler and I said, I'm going to go live tonight. I need to talk about SmackDown because it just really rubbed me the wrong way. My honest opinion is, what was Triple H thinking? I made a comment to Tyler, I think it was earlier or last night. Triple H has been a part of the last 3 tribute shows in WWE. He was a part of the Owen Hart tribute show. He was a part of the Chris Benoit tribute show, and he was a part of the Eddie Guerrero tribute show. And yes, I know the Chris Benoit one's supposed to be like deleted from existence because of what, like, they gave him a tribute before finding out all the information. But this is not about that. It's about the fact that of the people that were involved. And I really expected to see what Miro, Seth Rollins, and Alexa Bliss did, going on their own social media, posting a video, being super emotional, showing themselves to be true. This, like, I'm going to miss this person. 2 different companies, 3 people just giving you a story, giving you 3 to 4 minutes of just honoring the guy. And we didn't get a single video like that yesterday on SmackDown. We got tweets. I felt that was so disrespectful to the legacy of Bray Wyatt. So because he's 36 years old and he's of this generation, that means that he doesn't, you don't honor him enough to have people sit down on a metal folding chair and just say some nice words about him. You've got to be kidding me. With all of the charisma, all of the people that are in that company, you honestly thought that was the right decision. I genuinely believe that is not a way to run a tribute show. I know all the rumors have come out and said that they canceled all plans and everything, but as Tyler just said, there was some storyline driven matches. Like, we got LA Knight cutting a promo on the Miz at the end of his beautiful little Bray Wyatt tribute there. He did wrap it all up, to bring it back. But the Zelina Vega comment. What?
At least he used one of Bray's, something he said.
Yeah, but, okay, the perfect example for me, and I know I keep beating a dead horse here, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm not trying to do this. I'm not trying to put pressure on LA Knight. But for the Owen Hart tribute show, one of his biggest rivals was Stone Cold. Stone Cold closed the show as a tribute to Owen Hart, even though that was a big rival for him on screen. And that's essentially what LA Knight did yesterday. So I know it comes off like he kept saying, like, we didn't see eye to eye or anything like that, but that's what I felt. That, to me, the LA Knight portion of the show was the best part of the entire show. It, to me, LA Knight versus Finn Balor felt very HBK, Rey Mysterio, not in terms of work rate, but it felt very much like, let's just go out there, let's just have a genuine wrestling match and just kind of like a goodbye, because ultimately wrestling is what these guys fell in love with. I didn't get that anywhere else. I was really annoyed with the fact that they stuck to story yesterday. I don't see how pausing for 1 week, you have a 3-hour show of SmackDown, of Raw next week. I'm sorry. And you have a SmackDown next week to go home show before Payback. They could have picked up on Monday and they could have carried over to the next pay-per-view. I don't think I've come on our podcast and been so critical of WWE. I'm a very weird person with death, and I feel like it needs to either be honored or ignored, as one of the 5 stages of grief. What I saw yesterday was not ignoring. It was almost like it and I know this is going to come off as very negative coming from my side, but it almost felt like them having to pay tribute to Terry and Bray for an entire show was almost inconvenient for them. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, and like anytime anything negative happens, it seems like we're just real quick to pile on Triple H, and we don't know if there was someone like he's head of creative, but he doesn't run the company. Like there's people above him, Nick Khan, and people at Endeavor. We don't know that they didn't push to keep the train rolling because there is a pay-per-view next week.
I understand that, but would you go as far as to say that the Jay Briscoe show and the Brody Lee show were better tributes to fallen wrestlers?
100%.
You have Eric Rowan on there just for the 10 bell salute. You don't have him cut a promo. You don't have him do a backstage segment, tell a story about Bray at all. He's one of the original members of the Wyatt family. He's the only one left alive. Seriously, what the fuck was he there for?
Right. In the Brody Lee show, like, his son literally basically booked the card.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean,
and I'm going to go as far as to say that this show would have been better had they used the Alexa Bliss video, had they used the Seth Rollins video, because at least they were out there and the people that were live in attendance, they didn't get a chance to see those videos. Nobody's going to stop, or you're going to hold your phone to your ear while you're trying to listen to what Seth said to him. Like, use those videos. Hey, let those be a part of the show.
Yeah, the Seth Rollins one, especially to me, I haven't seen Alexa's yet. I saw Miro's and I saw Seth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both so heartfelt.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get too much into it because I'm going to discuss tomorrow what I took from both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I will make an effort to see Alexa's in the meantime. So I saw Randy Orton.
That was from his wife. He hasn't been able to post yet.
Is that real though?
Yeah, it's from Kim Orton. Yeah, it's from her page. It's on her Instagram page. If you go to it, it's her very last post. Yeah. Because I follow her.
Because it seemed odd.
No,
I didn't know if he was talking about somebody else.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know if somebody else had passed and it was someone had clipped that and said, "Oh, well, this is Randy talking about Bray." Like it could have been he said something when Brody passed or whatever because he worked with him too.
Yeah, no, it was genuine. Yeah.
Because I don't, in the video I saw, and it may be clipped, he never mentions him by name.
Oh, there's no video. It's just a post on her Instagram. I could read it. I have it pulled up.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying. I wonder if I saw a video, but I couldn't tell if it was legit or if it was from a past experience.
No. The post is a photo of their boys with Wyndham, and then she goes on saying that like Randy he's broken, essentially.
Yeah, man, he worked with him so much.
Yeah, it's weird. We actually talked about this. We actually said this, I think, after we got off. I mean, me and Tyler did like a little quick audio testing for tomorrow, where we talk about who was his best rival, and
we'll call it that.
Yeah, and
it was rough.
Yeah, and we asked who his best rival was. We just asked each other, and we both agreed it was Randy Orton, based on the fact that they had 2 WrestleMania matches, and no other wrestler has had the type of program that they had. I mean, I know you can also say based on 2 WrestleMania matches, it could be John Cena, but I don't think the Cena feud helped
too much for him. Yeah.
No, if anything, that feud hurt him, so I wouldn't consider that a feud at all. I figured that would just be like feeding Bray to him. Speaking of the Preacher, John Cena, he will be on SmackDown next week, and he is apparently going to pay tribute to Bray Wyatt next Friday. So we know Cena's going to do this right. I call him the Preacher because when he turned G, he sounded like a preacher when he was cutting promos.
Sort of. I don't know what he had going on last night, and I don't particularly care.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he could have been there.
Yeah, I genuinely don't understand. So last night was a double tribute show, right? So we're Foley on Foley's pod. He just did a tribute to Terry Funk. It's an hour and 14-minute podcast on Terry Funk, and it's done beautifully. And obviously, like Foley, no one can deliver these type of heartfelt stories the way Mick Foley can, because he sounds like us. He doesn't sound polished. He doesn't sound produced. He's just real, right? Is that what you get from his podcast? He's just very real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why wouldn't anybody contact Mick Foley to have him record a quick little clip for Terry Funk? Like a real one, like not a past one, something recent, something now, like I'm gonna miss you, my friend, anything like that. Where's that? Like, I don't know. That's just kind of what I felt. I don't want to continue to harp on it, but I felt like I wanted to point this out because I don't understand how this company has the actual blueprint on how to do this. And what they did last night, I hope we never see again. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I hope we just don't lose active wrestlers like this again. But, you know, I just
the ball was dropped in a big way.
Yeah, it just wasn't a good tribute show, and I genuinely didn't appreciate it, any part of it. A lot of it felt like it could have, like all of those spots, like the lantern at the end, the rocking chair, all of that felt beautiful, but then the rest of the show just felt like a SmackDown. Like it didn't feel like they were honoring either individual. Having two promos
I thought Cody did a nice job, and I thought LA Knight did a nice job, but beyond that.
Yeah, but Cody could pay tribute to a pigeon and it would choke you up. He's just got away with words. So I genuinely don't believe that he could have said anything wrong out there. And because he had that real airport experience with Terry Funk, that just made you feel so much closer to what Terry meant to him and to what Terry meant to him and to Dusty and to the Reynolds family. But yeah, I guess we'll wrap that up there, and let's talk about AEW Collision tonight. And we're just gonna comb through this real fast. It was a pretty meat and potatoes show based on the fact that tomorrow they have a pay-per-view, and this was pre-recorded. So what the heck? I had all my notes here. I apologize. Here it is. So the show opens up with Jack Perry, who is slowly becoming the biggest heel in AEW, just based on heat value alone. Like the heat he gets is, I'm gonna consider it Baron Corbin and early Miz heat. Like, I think people don't want to hear from him. They don't want to look at him. They want to change the channel. Like, that's what it feels like to me. I don't think, and whatever, heat is controversy, and controversy is money. So the show starts out with him coming out, which I don't know if this is like the smartest thing to do, but he comes out with a funeral for the FTW championship. Mm-hmm. And he cuts a promo, and he says that people will look back at this title in 100 years and they will picture his face right next to the FTW title. They go through this little montage that looks like they just kind of did it like earlier today, which is just a photo of him shirtless on a bike with the belt in the basket, him, in a bathing suit by the swimming pool with like on a lawn chair while the FTW title's in the other lawn chair. Like him starting a fire with the FTW championship, like it's his camping buddy. Just some really weird little photos. It was great. And then we get a vignette on the screen, and it's Hook doing pull-ups on a stoplight, like on the street, and he cuts a promo, which is very odd. Next thing you know, we go to the ring and Hook is behind him. He suplexes him, puts him through a table, and now we have an added match to Wembley on Sunday. He picks up the microphone. I'm thinking like, oh, is this kid going to talk? He did talk. 2 words. Wembley Sunday. So that's what we get. So yeah, I mean, any thoughts on that?
Wow, I didn't even think about when you said funeral. I didn't even think about they taped this on Wednesday.
Yeah. That's why I can't really knock it.
Yeah, that's rough.
Mm-hmm.
That's Vince McMahon dying in an exploding limo rough.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a
Guys, let's just cut the funerals and the death from pro wrestling, because it never seems to be bad luck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate Jack Perry progressing his character.
Oh yeah.
I think
it sounds like really good stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's working really well. I actually came up with a comparison to him that I was wondering if I could run it by you quick, which is he reminds me of early Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, like kind of like someone who's talented in the ring, but just didn't have that charisma aspect yet. But he's slowly building on it, because now Johnny gimmick here, insert gimmick here, he's very charismatic now. So I'm hoping it doesn't take Jack Perry that long.
I think Jack is a better talker than Johnny was at that stage of his career.
Agreed. Although,
but I think Johnny probably was a better worker.
Yeah.
So
we go on to the first match of the evening. It's OC, Eddie Kingston, and Penta versus Kip Sabian, the Butcher, and the Bleed. Pretty standard match, not very long. The good guys win, we come back and we talk about the best friends, back from break. The best friends come out, they're calling out like everybody they're kind of talking about the match the next day. Eddie Kingston freaks out, starts running to the back, throwing chairs everywhere, grabs this man looking for Santana and Ortiz. And he's just genuinely surprised how they're joining John Moxley's group. So there's really no clear reason why they chose Santana and Ortiz for their group, but lots of people predicted it was going to be them, so the prediction came right. What do you think of why Eddie? Like, do you think this cost Eddie's team this match just based on the fact that he's got 3 best friends on the other side? Or do you want to wait till predictions?
I don't know if it cost them the match, but I think it's good storytelling. Why are all his friends against him?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of Eddie's thing, right?
Granted, if that's the case, he should be a heel, not a babyface. But
yeah, Eddie is a natural heel.
Eddie's thing is he's on whatever team that's against Claudio. It doesn't really matter who's on it.
Yeah.
Or whether they're baby faces or heels.
Yeah.
He just wants to fight Claudio.
Yeah, agreed. We move on from there to yeah. We move on from there to the Dark Order versus Top Flight. And Dark Order picks up the win. Nothing super special. I think it was just to get the Dark Order back on television. I don't know. Nothing serious.
Top Flight with not with Dante.
Not with Dante. No. Okay. Darius Martin and Action Andretti.
I was gonna say he can't possibly be ready to come back yet.
No way. No. Then we get a music video by the Acclaimed and Badass Billy Gunn going after the House of Black. Pretty standard for the Acclaimed. Nothing to write home about. I don't think people will be quoting.
It wasn't nearly as hilarious as the one on Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal.
Nah.
No, okay.
Nah. Yeah, very cheap heat kind of stuff. It was good though. So my favorite part of the evening was the continuation of the story of Ricky Starks being Big Bill's manager. And Bill comes out and he beats Barry Morales pretty quickly. Local talent.
Okay.
After the match, Ricky beats the guy with the belt. So that's the 3rd straight person he's beaten with the same belt that he beat Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with. What do you think of the pairing of Big Bill and Ricky Starks?
It's an interesting dichotomy, big man, little man. Gives Ricky a chance to shine without working. I wonder if he's dealing with an injury.
Yeah.
To be put in this spot.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I don't see why you wouldn't want him in the ring, but if he's dealing with an injury, that would make sense.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm wondering that too. That's a good call. Good. That would make sense.
The only other thing is I wonder if they don't want because Bill Cass, whatever you want to call him, has always kind of had a heater or someone to talk for him.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he's just not very good on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
He had Enzo in WWE, and
that would make sense for Ricky Stark then, because Ricky and Enzo are pretty comparable on the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah. Say what you will about Enzo, but
the guy can talk.
Well, yeah.
Not very many people can get dressed down live on Monday Night Raw by The Miz and still come out the winner of the promo. So, I mean, that's rare. We move on to a couple of women's segments. Ruby Soho challenges Statlander for the TBS chip. That's for All Out. What do you think of that? Statlander versus Ruby Soho.
I mean, they're both good performers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Neither one of them, I think both of them have been underutilized. I realize Statlander has that title, but she also, I haven't seen her on TV in weeks.
Yeah. She did
And
cut a little
Ruby's-
bit of a backstage promo that it might have been a pre-recorded segment.
And Ruby seems to be the odd one out in that stable
Mm-hmm.
that she's in. So it's nice to see her getting to be on a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. I'm
Yeah.
good with it.
Yeah, me too. The next women's segment is actually a match, a 2-segment match. Robin Renegade versus Willow Nightingale. Yeah, this one's pretty cut and dry. Solid wrestling. Willow gave Robin a lot of heat. So yeah, the Renegade girls, I guess it's 2 sisters. They got a lot of stuff in on Willow. Willow ultimately comes out with the Dr. Death driver. I guess that's her finisher, the sit out Dr. Death driver. And yeah, she looks good. I love the fact that they're finding ways to get Willow on television every single week. She seems like the most consistent female athlete in the company that's on weekly. And I gotta say, man, great call pointing that out, because it seems like they agree with you that Willow is the future of that company.
Yeah, I think she's a really good worker, and she seems to connect with the audience. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah. Next, we get a 90-second match between Keith Lee and Zicky Dice. I don't know what to say. 90 seconds for Keith Lee seems like a waste.
Yeah. I knew it wouldn't be anything too spectacular when it said also Keith Lee in action. That usually means they're beating a jobber.
Yeah. It's pretty rough. Moving on to the end of the night, we have Samoa Joe. He comes to the ring. He cuts a promo on CM Punk, and he says that this is what he wanted all along. He played CM Punk like a fiddle. He got Punk to give him what he wanted, which was a match at All In, so he could finish this feud the way he wants to finish it. Because, once again, he points out that he likes having that one record over Punk. And after this weekend, it will erase the fluke victory that Punk got over him the last time they worked each other. So, Samoa Joe, once again, awesome promo, great guy. Are you excited for this match?
Yes, I am excited. It should be really good.
Agreed. I think it's going to be awesome. The main event of the evening is Hook, Darby Allin, Sting, and CM Punk versus Jay White, Luchasaurus, Brian Cage, and Swerve Strickland. This is the most random 8-person tag that I've ever seen. Highlight for me of the match was watching Punk and Swerve in the ring together. That was a little bit of a nibble, and I'm gonna need a whole fucking Twinkie, because I'm gonna need that match. Like, that was not enough for me. I need more of CM Punk versus Swerve.
Yeah, I want to see him work with Swerve. I want to see him work one-on-one with Jay White.
Yeah.
Both of those I need to see, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Hook, Darby, Sting, and CM Punk get the win.
Yeah, that match was not advertised.
Yeah, very weird. Joe comes in, he attacks Punk. Jack Perry comes in, he battles Hook. A brawl breaks out everywhere with everyone fighting everybody else, and that's the end of the show. Pretty
underwhelming.
Pretty underwhelming. Yeah, pretty underwhelming show for the fact that they have a pay-per-view tomorrow. didn't feel great, but it got the point across. I just thought we were going to get more stuff. Let's move on to AEW All In. So let's confirm now that we know that AEW All In has 82,000 people that are going to be live in attendance. That's how many tickets they sold. That's not saying that's how many people are going to be there. Remember, 82,000 tickets sold. So it's possibly going to be closer to 90,000 or possibly 85,000 if we're going to go short, because there's going to be workers in attendance. There's going to be entertainment people in attendance. It looks like they're branching out. Saraya did a promo with Jack Whitehall in a local news station in London yesterday. So they're definitely getting media coverage in London for this show. I mean, this is pretty exciting for professional wrestling. And before we get into it, I fear I don't know if you ever watched the shorts on YouTube, besides our stuff, of course, but Eric Bischoff just had a short, and it really kind of scared me when it came to this show. He said, the biggest star of this card is the crowd because it's so big. And the last thing you want is to have random matches thrown together, because that'll just be another house show in front of 82,000 people. So they need to be successful tomorrow night, or else it could be a massive failure to the future of the business, meaning that people will check out. You'll see ratings go down, and you'll see just people bad-mouthing them more so than they do now.
We know he hopes that's the case.
I don't believe so. He has defended this show since day one. The only thing he said was he said on the Conrad Thompson show on 83 Weeks, he said that he was contacted by some people that told him that they may or may not be papering the house. That happens. So they gave some tickets away, whatever. But that's a pretty big statement to make, especially since he's one of those guys that calls out people for lying.
Yeah, he just, to me, he just seems hypercritical of the company pretty much all the time.
Well, I mean, did you say it to me in a telephone conversation yesterday or the day before where you said sometimes people just hold grudges and won't let them go? They just have those people about them. Was that you that said that to me?
Yeah, we're talking about Brett. There's just people that you just hate.
Yes, and I believe Eric Bischoff loved Tony Khan until Tony said that thing about WCW, and
but all he said was, "We're not going to make the same mistakes they made."
Yeah, but we're not.
Does Eric not believe they made mistakes?
I don't think it was that cut and dry, and I think that we're in no place to tell Eric Bischoff how he should feel or not feel about a comment made about him. If he took it a certain way, they have confirmed more than once on the show that there's this rumor that Eric either turned down a job or wasn't offered a job. None of this ever came up. So I don't know where people got that rumor from, but it's definitely not a true thing. I think people are just looking for reasons as to why Eric Bischoff hates Tony Khan, and it could be
what he said.
What?
Yeah, what Eric said was, "I don't think I'll be making any more appearances on Dynamite anytime soon."
Yeah, but I think people are grasping at straws, just trying to figure out why Eric Bischoff has a problem with Tony Khan. Now, I will say that he does have a very valid point as to Tony Khan slowly changing his business, because they were labeled as the wrestling company and they've slowly geared towards entertainment, and they were supposed to be the alternative, and they're slowly but surely turning into the WWE. They're doing the same stuff. They're caring about entertainment. They're not people tuned into AEW to watch wrestling, not to watch Daniel Garcia dance in the ring. And he specifically said those exact words. People were excited because all we've gotten for 20 years is entertainment, and we wanted wrestling back. And
but that's
AEW's
one angle,
What?
That's one angle, and it's specifically geared to be saying, okay, we're different from everybody else in this company.
Yes, but that's not what the company was built on.
So you want everything to be the same?
Yeah, they're not the same. They are turning into the same. I don't understand what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is there's tons of wrestling on their program. We usually get a 30-minute main event. There's usually 2 or 3 other long matches during the night. The JAS was geared to be, we're not the same as the rest of this company. We're better than you. We're entertainers.
What was the purpose of that, though?
Okay, but they're trying to act like they're better than everybody else there because Jericho's saying he's an entertainer. He came from the top company. He knows what it is to be an entertainer instead of just a wrestler.
Yeah, but
it gets heat, or it did for a minute. I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm saying it's one part of the show. It's not the whole show.
But when that's not what the show was labeled as, we were from episode 1, we were told this is not going to be entertainment. We care about wrestling here. It's all about wrestling. If what you're saying, if that was the thing, then why have MJF be MJF? Because to me, he's all the entertainment the company needed. That's it. Everyone else could have been one man out of 1,000 people being entertainment. And I feel like Max is so good at his job that he's all the entertainment we needed. The rest of the show could have been wrestling. But
you're still getting 80% wrestling, 20% entertainment. Like,
I don't think we got a lot of wrestling during those JAS segments. It felt very
right. They're part of the 20%.
I guess I don't know. I
don't actually find them to be that entertaining either, but it's what they were trying to be.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't mean to call you out here. I guess like the way your voice says to Eric all the time, but it does feel like you disagree a lot with Eric Bischoff. It does feel like whenever he has a statement about this company, you find a way to disagree or find a way to play devil's advocate for the other company.
Because every statement he makes just seems to be out of bitterness.
But that statement, we have to admit that's what the company sold us on, and they took it away from us.
They didn't take it away from us.
Yes, they did.
Slightly changed. So there's no wrestling on their show. Their show isn't majority wrestling.
No, not anymore.
When you watch Dynamite on Wednesday night, it's not probably it's a 2-hour show. We'll say it's 90 minutes of actual not commercials. You wouldn't say that 65 minutes of that is wrestling?
No, nowhere near that.
Okay, well, I don't know what you're watching.
Okay, well, I have facts here. Give me a second. I'll have them for you in a minute. Just give me a minute. I have statistics on the wrestling minutes per week in the past 2 months, if you're okay with that. And sure, then I also
but I also want to know how much of it is progressing an angle that is going to lead.
That's not what they're supposed to be doing. So
you just want them to be fucking Ring of Honor?
Yes, that's what they were supposed to be. That's exactly what Eric Bischoff is saying.
They have a show for that. It's called Ring of Honor.
But it's not a mainstream show. It's not on television weekly. That's what they were supposed to be. They moved away from it. They're moving towards WWE, where they care about angles. They care about stories. They care about entertainment. That's all he's saying. That's the point. You're mad at him for speaking the truth. And you just admitted that what he said is factually correct.
Okay, well, he also says that he was different than WWE, but he really wasn't because his show was the same thing.
But Eric Bischoff has been very clear. He does not like pro wrestling. He does not like wrestling. He likes the stories. Eric is all about.
But he also said that he didn't want to be WWE light. He wanted to be different, and what he ended up being was WWE light.
And that's
so he's a hypocrite.
So he's trying to tell the company that this is how I failed. You're doing what I did. That's not being hypocritical. That's giving advice to a company. What's hypocritical about that? I don't understand. You're just angry at him.
aside from the cruiserweight division, which got 20 minutes of show, there is better wrestling on the average episode of Dynamite than they ever had on Nitro. Better in-ring wrestling.
I don't. You're gonna have to explain your statement there.
We're not getting old, past their prime performers, with the exception of a couple, plodding around the ring. We're getting dynamic matches, fast-paced.
How
intense.
dare you lie on our podcast when Randy the Ram is out here wrestling every single
I said aside
week.
from a couple, and you and your fucking hyperbole.
That's not hyperbole.
You call it hyperbole, and then you go to the most extreme example you can find.
Fine, I will explain myself why I call Chris Jericho Randy the Ram, if that's what you need me to do. Randy the Ram in the movie The Wrestler is not able to keep up with the young guys. He needs to change his style to a hardcore mindset. He needs to let people staple dollar bills to his forehead. He needs to join a different version of wrestling and go away from his style of the Hulk Hogan style wrestling that he produced in the movie. That is what Randy the Ram does. So much so that by the end, he's so unwanted by wrestling fans that he has become like a lethargic legend that sure, okay, let's bring him in here like when Hogan comes out once every 4 WrestleManias to pop the crowd. That's what Chris Jericho is turning into. And the fact that, which I find very frustrating that it doesn't bother someone like you, that makes you, sir, a hypocrite, is that Jericho is stealing opportunities from young guys who can be wrestling now, because you can make comments about how Logan Paul and Bad Bunny and Brock Lesnar come in, they don't spend all this time in wrestling, and then they come in and they steal opportunities from the wrestlers now. And then you have Chris Jericho, he is essentially at the end of his rope, and instead of giving back to the business, he just comes in and then he'll get a big win over somebody like a Hangman Adam Page, or he'll get a big win over a Daniel Garcia or a Sammy Guevara, and then he'll tell you on his podcast, well, you're damn right I'm supposed to win. I'm Chris Jericho. That
when
person,
was the last
you don't
time
know.
you won a match?
What are you talking about? Oh, here we go. That's the guy.
When's the last time you won a match?
I genuinely don't know, because when he comes on my television, I go take a shit.
Yeah, sure you do.
I don't want to see Chris Jericho do anything. I don't even think he cuts good promos anymore. He touches a microphone and I'm not interested in even hearing what he has to say. I have completely checked out on Chris Jericho, the way our generation has checked out on Hulk Hogan. That's why Hogan doesn't come out in WWE anymore, because when he comes out, people literally don't care anymore. Check the last time he came out. Nobody cared. The people backstage were like, why is he here? Like, that's gone, bro. We're not in the generation where we need to respect guys like this anymore. Like, I'm sorry, you're not doing anything to respect the new guys. Him wrestling Will Ospreay.
All he does is put over new guys.
Well, that is factually incorrect. I can actually point out a podcast where he actually says, yes, your God did. He says it 2 different times.
Like 6 years ago.
Okay, 3 different times, since you pointed out somebody I wasn't talking about. So he talks about, you're damn right I had to beat Neville because I'm Chris Jericho and nobody knows who Neville is. He made the same statement about Adam Page. He made the same statement about AJ Styles at WrestleMania. This is what he does. He figures out a way in his narcissist tendencies to tell you, yes, I'm supposed to win. I have made this comparison. He is Hollywood Hogan at the end of Hollywood Hogan in WCW. He is figuring out ways to put the title on himself, like Bash at the Beach 2000. That's what he's doing. He doesn't have the championship. You don't think
him having the title at the start of this company was the best thing for this company?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You're full of shit.
Okay.
Some guy nobody's ever heard of. You're just going to go ahead and put the title on him.
Would have put the title on
Kenny
Omega.
He was absolutely not ready for it.
Kenny Omega even said it himself. He thought no one here knew who the fuck he was. He thought that. No one
knew who Adam Page was.
But they all knew who Kenny Omega was. He should have opened this company as the world champion. That's what I just said. So you just ignored me and said Adam Page. That's not even.
That's not who the title match was. That's not who was in the title match.
Dynamite is a 2-hour show. It had 38% wrestling last week. And the same the week before. They had 45 minutes.
What percent were commercials? How long for commercials?
That's not in here.
Okay, well, it's not a 2-hour show because it's at least 30 minutes commercials. You can't wrestle during the commercials. Well, you can, but it's not on TV.
Yes, they do. AEW wrestles during commercials. They have picture-in-picture.
I understand, but I doubt that they're counting that.
Okay. Well, I have actual statistics here. They did 45 minutes. SmackDown did 46 minutes. Raw did 58 minutes.
In 3 hours.
Okay. And Collision does 56 minutes. Collision is the only show that is exactly what it's made out to be. It is exactly what AEW said they were going to be. So they changed their tune, their business model, and decided, hey, we're going to do an entertainment show, and then we're going to give you your wrestling show on Saturday, the show that nobody watches, that gets 300,000 viewers. But the show that gets almost 1 million viewers a week, we're going to give you all these nonsensical stories nobody gives a shit about, even though you tune in to see,
well, I guess 1 million people must give a shit about them.
Because they tune in to see Orange Cassidy. They tune in to see certain people like that. Those are the money makers.
And they're still there, so...
They're not doing that well, Tyler. They can't crack that 1 million, but I bet you if they went back to a wrestling model, they probably would crack that 1 million because they're not different from Raw. Why would you want to watch Raw and then 2 days later watch the same exact show but a different company?
It feels much fresher.
There's nothing about Dynamite that tells me it's even different than Raw.
Okay.
They're the same. He wants to copy the company. We're going back to this. You're just figuring out ways to be angry at Eric Bischoff. I don't know what he did to you. I don't know if he kicked your puppy or he said something negative to you on Twitter or what.
Never interacted with him.
Maybe you accidentally typed him something and said "you're" instead of "you are," and he corrected you, and now you hate him for it. I don't know what it is, but anytime Eric says anything on that show negative about AEW, you get really angry with him.
Because he goes out of his way to do it every week. Because the owner said that he's not going to make the same mistakes that a company that Eric was in that failed did.
And
he's the wrestling promoter version of Bret Hart.
You know what? I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you just completely bash Eric Bischoff. So what Tyler is refusing to tell you because he's trying to get cheap heat on Eric Bischoff, TNT and Turner Broadcast took most of Eric Bischoff's stuff away. By the time the NWO was on its way out after the Sting won the world title, TNT and Turner Broadcast told Eric Bischoff he needed to go to a more lighter audience. He needed to go more PG. They took away what made him special while Raw was doing the content that he had beat Raw with. Raw took his content, did it better. Eric has said they did it better, but TNT wasn't letting him go back to that content. He had to do something he wasn't good at, which was be PG-13. They didn't want their company to be that style anymore. They didn't want Nitro girls out there anymore. They didn't want Gorgeous George and Major Guns wrestling in the ring. They didn't want stuff like that made him edgy and good. So they took things away from him, and then they fired
the
Eric.
Company was already dead before either one of those performers showed up.
Not true. Once again, Tyler's just saying stuff because he hates Eric Bischoff.
George
not
showed up
true.
in 1999. WCW was beyond help at that point.
That was when they hired Vince Russo because they realized they screwed up.
They hired Vince Russo after
when Eric was let go. Eric was only brought back to yes, and then the company failed. It went from being number one.
Failing.
No, it happened in a year. Their tank happened in a year. Literally, they went from finger poke of doom to boom. Vince Russo just crushed this company.
Right. So in the spring and summer of 1999, that company was already failing. Vince Russo came in October of 99. So Who was in charge then?
Once again, I'll say it for you since you chose to ignore it. Turner Broadcast told Eric Bischoff, "We don't want you doing this anymore." That would be like someone going into your job while you're making Big Macs at McDonald's and telling you, "Hey, I don't want you to put a patty on both sides of the bun anymore. I want you to put it on one side of the bun because it just makes more sense for business." They told him to stop doing what made him successful.
WWE had to adapt to their rules changing, and they're still here.
After they won the war. No one is.
They still had to go from.
No, I'm not going to do this with you. This is what you're doing. We're not talking about WWE. I already told you Eric Bischoff has admitted that WWE did it better. So you just throwing that back in there, it means that you're losing this argument.
They had to be PG, right?
That's what's happening.
Did they not have to be? Did they have to be PG?
Right?
Did they have to be PG? Did they have to?
After the fact, when they were the only wrestling company on television, they were told you need to go to PG-13. Also, by the way, because you're refusing to admit it, John Cena was the catalyst for PG. He's the one who told Vince, there are kids wearing my stuff. It wasn't just a company. It wasn't USA or TNN or Spike TV. It was John Cena, their major company. Their major guy in the company said, hey, we need to stop going out here and being a white rapper, and I need to be all about hustle, loyalty, and respect. They went back to the Hulk Hogan model based on what John Cena saw in the audience.
And also because Mattel, who was their major toy distributor, wanted a PG product.
Okay. But there was no competition. So it's not like people were going to stop watching wrestling altogether. And John Cena was so far and beyond such a amazing character that people actually enjoyed him. Like, I'm a dad, and if John Cena was on, if Arthur was growing up in that era, the Ruthless Aggression era, and he got to watch John Cena, I'm not going to tell him to stop watching him. He's great for children. So that's what it was. But WCW wasn't geared like that.
It became a show for children.
Exactly.
So WCW couldn't have done the same thing?
No.
They couldn't have had Hulk Hogan come back out and say
that. No.
So he couldn't adapt.
No, exactly. And that's what got him fired. He could not adapt. And that's why he has said, which once again, I'm going to say for the third fucking time, you're ignoring. He said WWE did it better. He admitted to not being able to do this. So what is your problem with Eric? Did he fuck your mom? What happened here? This makes zero sense. Your issue with Eric Bischoff feels very much like Republicans and Democrats. It makes zero sense. You're making up stuff. You're lying on our podcast now.
How am I lying? What lie did I tell?
You're over here saying that he couldn't adapt, like meaning like he had all this ample time. They told him it was like a 6-month period. Change everything you did to take us from not turning a profit to being the most successful business in the company. And then they're like, you know what? Go back to that model where you didn't turn a profit.
He was told in early 98.
That's what they told him to do.
In early 98.
The most successful year in WCW's history. 1998. They told him while he was in the middle of the most successful year in the company's history, hey, you have to go back to doing it this way. We need you to go back to Jim Crockett Promotions. We need you to go back to this way.
It was over a year.
Okay, you think change just happens right away? WWE went from cartoon characters to the Attitude Era like this is what you're saying? Or did it take them like 83 weeks to get there?
Well, I don't think they started at the beginning of those 83 weeks. I think it took a while for them to even realize they needed to.
Okay.
And Eric himself will even say that 98 was not, the product they had in 98 was not good. They made money off of what they did in 97.
Yes. I agree. But what I don't understand is you get so angry at him commenting about, like, it's not like a troll on Twitter. He actually did this. He failed. Michael Jordan.
The man had one good idea, and it worked because Hulk Hogan turned.
You've got to be kidding me, dude. Come on. What? I just don't understand.
Was WCW a good product pre-NWO?
Yes.
No.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
It was basically WWF, but like everyone was 10 years older. It was 80s WWF with everyone 10 years older before the NWO.
That is the biggest like load of crap I've ever heard come out of your mouth.
How is that? How is it?
Because
Hogan,
the Four Horsemen was the most
Savage.
overstable in the company. Hogan and Savage went in there. They were still in their prime. Hogan was still in his prime in 1994. The reason WWE didn't want him is because he threw Vince McMahon under the bus in the steroid trial. So they weren't going to bring him back. He ratted out Vince McMahon during the trial. He got pretty much fired himself. Whether he walked away or however, they weren't going to reconcile that fast. It took till almost 2000 or after 2000 for him to go back to WWE. And then he lost a bunch of weight. And what happens when you lose weight? Look at Daniel Bryan. Look at Kofi Kingston. Look at Chris Jericho. Whenever any of these wrestlers wind up losing weight, they're better in the ring. Hulk Hogan in 94 was better than 89 Hulk Hogan in WWF because in 89, he was juiced up. I mean, that's just the truth. And Hogan was still the most over guy in the business. There wasn't anybody close to him, bro. He was filming Thunder in Paradise for TBS. He comes in and he sells more pay-per-views one time in a wrestling match with Ric Flair than WWF had done in 5 years. What does that tell you if he's past this prime? What does that tell you?
Okay, and I'm talking about 2 years later in 1996.
Okay, and then they have the NWO. He comes up, yes.
Eventually.
But the thing is, you're sitting here and you're saying like Eric had one great idea, and Eric doesn't even feel that way. He credits Scott Hall for the NWO. He said he had the idea. He says he had the idea of putting these outsiders in together, and he was going to put Sting with them, but it was Hall's baby, and they all took direction from Scott Hall. I have proof that he says this.
Never heard him say that.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now where he said it.
Because he talks about when Hall came in and he didn't even have him completely clued in because he wasn't sure he could trust him.
What? That's not even close.
He talks about he picked him up at the airport on his first day because he didn't know if he could trust him. He hadn't completely clued him in on what they were doing, and he had to feel him out to see if he was really in. Hall had great ideas afterwards, like the Crow Sting, but they were going to turn Sting, but then Hogan said that he thought he should be the third man. That was Hulk Hogan's idea.
On October 17, 2022, Eric Bischoff has a podcast. It's episode 240 on 83 weeks. It's called Scott Hall Too Sweet. It's after he passes away. So he
changed his tune after he passed away.
He just told the truth. He was doing exactly what every wrestler does ever. You're so angry at these wrestlers for staying kayfabe. I don't understand. He just ran with the story. When Scott Hall died, kayfabe died with him. He might as well just tell the truth about him. Scott gets a lot of credit for a lot of what they do.
Yes, he absolutely admits that Scott Hall was a great creative mind.
Yeah, that Kevin Nash.
Have you not listened to?
Yes, I listened to. There's 3 Scott Hall episodes on that podcast.
I'm not talking about it. It's not a Scott Hall episode. It's the Sting in '96.
Okay.
Where he talks about when Scott Hall came in, I didn't know if I could trust him. I'd heard he had an attitude. I heard he had some problems. I picked him up at the airport and drove to the show with him. It was my birthday, as a matter of fact, to just see if I could trust him. And I hadn't clued him in on what he was going to be doing yet. Like all I did was give him his promo.
Mm-hmm.
So don't tell me it was Scott Hall's idea. He gives him credit for it now because he's gone. And he wanted to be nice.
So the man himself tells you it was his idea. He tells you himself, hey, this is the idea that Scott Hall came up with, and you're calling him a liar.
I'm saying he said otherwise beforehand. So it's interesting that his.
So you don't believe kayfabe is a thing?
I don't believe Eric Bischoff is kayfabing us on his podcast. No, not at all.
I believe he does, especially when he talks about Hogan. He does it all the time. You honestly believe that he doesn't think Hogan's like...
No, I think Hulk Hogan is one of his best friends, and I think he owes most of his career to Hulk Hogan. So no, he's not going to talk about.
All right. So you studied criminal justice? Is that what you studied?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can tell when someone's lying, right? You can pretty much tell based on verbiage, based on demeanor, right?
To a certain
Like
extent.
that's something.
Yeah,
Okay,
I guess.
so you can't tell when Eric Bischoff is very passive with questions, and he starts saying, "I wasn't a part of that creative," or "I don't really know."
Yeah, because
That
he's
was
not
more
gonna he's not gonna answer negative questions about Hogan because Hogan is one of his best friends, and
exactly. That's the point.
he feels he owes him.
Exactly. What does he
Okay,
owe him?
that's exactly what I just said.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like he gave credit to Scott Hall. He gave us a peek behind the curtain, and you're saying that it wasn't Scott. My point, going back to what we were originally speaking to, is I don't understand what Eric Bischoff did specifically to Tyler Taylor that has made you be so defensive of AEW when he is trying to help the company by giving them
because I
insight.
don't believe he's trying to help them. I think he wants.
Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that Eric Bischoff would rather wrestling fail? What about what he says?
Because he was never critical of them until Tony said what he said. And then all of a sudden, CM Punk's a piece of shit. Tony Khan's a piece of shit. This company's storylines are bullshit, blah, blah, blah. He never said any of that beforehand.
But, Tyler, you have to agree.
So somebody said something about him, and he got boo-boo-faced.
He didn't get boo-boo-faced. He told the truth. AEW storylines are shit.
I disagree. So do apparently a million other people.
Okay.
So you may think that, and there may be a lot of people that think that, not just you. There may be a lot of people that think that, and it's maybe not their cup of tea, but that's fine.
I'm trying to figure out why you're avoiding the question. What
he did nothing.
About?
He's done nothing to me.
Okay.
I just think the comments he makes, I think, are made out of bitterness.
How would he be bitter? He's one of the smartest minds in the history of professional wrestling. Like I don't think that that's a popularly held opinion. Okay. Well, I'm gonna say that the NWO people are still wearing that T-shirt today. He came up with that. Him and Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Sting came up with it. Okay. If
you want to say he had one of the best ideas in the history of wrestling, I will give you that.
That in 2023, people are still praising, still considering
one of the best ideas in the history of wrestling. Yes.
Okay. And not only that, he revitalized what people felt about light heavyweights. Right? He changed what a light heavyweight was. Brought the cruiserweights
for a minute.
Okay. He also made the original connection to Japan. Would you say WCW versus Japan, New Japan? That was a big deal for him. He took part in a lot of that.
Sure, WWE was running over there too, though.
But they weren't doing it successful until they had the NWO. Then they had like the versus Japan and stuff like that. They had their cups, which Sting came out the winner most of the time. Just wanted to drop that in there because he's Sting. But yeah. Sorry. But Eric Bischoff, he had great ideas, man. It was his idea to bring in Hogan the way he did. He's the one who saw Macho Man Randy Savage as still money. He says it himself. He brought in Macho thinking that Macho meant as much to the business as Hogan. They were looked at the same. He ran the company pretty well, turned a profit when they couldn't. He got rid of house shows because house shows weren't making them money in WCW.
I think he's a smart businessman.
Okay.
So
if he's giving advice to people,
I don't think he's some sort of creative genius, though. He even says a lot of the creative went through Kevin Sullivan.
All right. Well, so did the Dungeon of Doom. So
yeah. Well, I don't know.
All right.
First of all, I think that gets a bad rap because Ming was a great performer.
Sure, but the Shocker ran through the wall and his helmet fell off, and
he fell down. Okay, he fell down.
Okay,
it's hard to walk and chew gum with a helmet on at the same time.
All right, so I mean, I'm not gonna say Eric didn't have his flaws. Like his stance on Raven might be one of the most ludicrous things I've ever heard in my life. Like
But
the
he's
guy
Eric
was
Bischoff. He's one of the smartest minds in wrestling history.
No,
So
I understand that.
must be right, right?
I'm not going to disagree with you that he's not hypocritical, because whenever he talks about Raven, he is very much hypocritical. Like he is. He's on 1 minute he's saying I'll give this guy a job even though I don't like who he is, and the next minute he'll tell you I'm not working with him. I'm just going to let him go over here and do his thing, and I'm not going to help him. Not be successful.
He said that Raven was a miserable piece of shit back then, and Raven's like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
I don't know, man. I got to tell you, I was a really big wrestling fan in that time. There's a reason why the guy who helped them produce WCW versus the NWO for N64 wanted Raven on the little sticker for the N64 thing.
Over.
Yeah, and Raven was one of the most over people in ECW. I mean, that crucifix angle on the cage, that angle was everywhere. Like him and Tommy Dreamer, that was everywhere.
Well, yeah. Paul Heyman even says that Scott Levy has one of the best creative minds for wrestling that he's ever known. Like
you're talking about a guy who had a boxing match with Johnny B. Bad and figured out a way to beat Johnny B. Bad by pouring water into his glove. Anyway, getting back to Eric Bischoff and AEW, I just think that what he said about the show tomorrow should be pointed out and it should be paid attention to. The biggest character tomorrow for the show is going to be the audience. Would you disagree with that?
Yeah.
Who's going to be the biggest character? If the audience turns on the pay-per-view because it's shit tomorrow, do you think it matters that MJF and Adam Cole are in the main event?
Well, no. If the audience turns on any show, that's the case, though.
All right. Well, we just saw it happen. The audience turned on Trish Stratus, a fellow countryman, because they were like, dude, we don't want you talking. Just like, no. You know what I mean? Like, they just did that. I think it was just
that she is a heel and she got a heel reaction.
Okay. However it works.
I don't understand why they would do that. Like,
I have no idea. I'm just telling you that, yes, crowd matters. That's all he's saying. And the show, the way they've strung together this show has not been smart business. Like, you book a show with 80,000 people before even booking a single match. Then you have this pay-per-view, you throw it all together. It feels like not a single match makes any sense. Like, I'm going to go as far as saying that there are only 2 matches that are advertised tomorrow that have actually been built with story, and that's CM Punk and Samoa Joe and Adam Cole and MJF. Every other match has been just thrown together.
I don't know that I agree with that, but hold on a second.
So what other matches were booked like those?
We'll get to that, but did Eric Bischoff criticize booking an 80,000 seat arena before having a card?
Yes.
This is the same guy who says on his podcast regularly, well, the arenas are booked a year in advance or such and such. So they didn't have cards for those shows.
But this is a different company. This is 4.5 years in. You're talking about 10, 15 years of WCW while he was booking shows a year in advance. It's like, when I said this to you the other day, you seemed to get so upset about it.
What he basically said was you have to get these places in advance, otherwise they're going to have other events.
When I told you the other day that WWE can make these mistakes because they have faith from the audience, they have cachet from it. They're not AEW where there's no faith, there's no history of them being able to string together something well. We don't have that with AEW. We've had lots of pay-per-views by AEW that have felt like house shows, that have felt like an episode of Dynamite. There's not a lot of that from WWE, especially over the past 15 months. They have been on a hot streak. They've had one bad pay-per-view in the past 15 months, and it was SummerSlam. And it wasn't even bad. It was just underwhelming.
When was there a bad AEW pay-per-view?
What are you talking about? Before Forbidden Door, they didn't have any good pay-per-views. What pay-per-views? Go ahead, name some matches. Name some matches. Name some stories. Go ahead.
The Fatal 4-Way with the 4 Pillars was great.
Well, who's talking about it?
Who's talking about it? I'm sure
people in 2023 in professional wrestling speak in hyperbole all the time. Would you say that that's true?
Sure.
Everything is about history making, right? Who's talking about?
People were talking about it on that night.
Okay, of course they were. It's a prisoner of the moment thing. All right, well, people are still talking about Brian Omega. They're still talking about MJF versus Darby Allin, like one-on-one. People are still talking about these matches. They still talk about the tag match that you love to talk about, the Young Bucks versus Adam Page.
And you know where all those occurred? You know where all those occurred except for Brian versus Omega? On AEW pay-per-views.
Okay. So you're telling me one match in an entire pay-per-view can sell. So you're telling me WrestleMania 13 is a good pay-per-view because of Brett and Austin?
I did not watch that entire pay-per-view. That's what I saw, and it was great.
Okay. So you're saying WrestleMania 13 was a good WrestleMania based on one match?
No, you said name matches, and that's the match that I saw from that pay-per-view.
Are they all from the same pay-per-view?
That match is from that pay-per-view.
Okay.
So the pay-per-view before that was Revolution. It was praised from top to bottom. It was the one that had Christian versus Jungle Boy in the casket match. Brian versus MJF in the Iron Man.
The only match that gets talked about is that Iron Man match. Nobody talks about any other matches. Forbidden Door, people talk about the whole card. There are 2 matches that stick out, obviously, but that's why I gave credit to Forbidden Door. It gets a lot of praise. But when you come out of
you're talking about a pay-per-view that happened in March. Yeah, we're not still talking about it in September, okay? But
we're still talking about matches
every match on the show was good. Let's see.
When did Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks happen? What year?
2020.
Okay, so we're talking about a match that happened 3 years ago, and people are still talking about it. When did Bryan versus Kenny Omega happen at Arthur Ashe Arena?
2021.
Okay, 2 years ago, people are still talking.
Okay, so these are some of the greatest matches in the history of the company.
But you just used the crux of your argument was that the 4 Pillars match happened in March, and nobody's going to talk about it here in August.
No, that happened in May.
Okay, so May, nobody's talking about it.
Okay, so it wasn't one of the greatest matches in the history of the company? Okay, it was still a great match.
Okay, but it wasn't enough for people to keep talking about it and be like, yeah, this is great.
Why do they need to talk about a match that happened then?
Because that's what we do in professional wrestling. People make lists all the time. We talk about wrestling all the time. Even our podcast brother company over there, Working the Marks, they do Turnbuckle in Time, and they talk about old matches. HBK versus Undertaker.
It's like
that's an old match.
Yeah, that's an old match. I'm saying the 4 Pillars match.
When that match came out. What?
The 4 Pillars match is not an old match at this point. It'd be like if you left pizza out.
But nobody's going to talk about that match because in 10, 15 years, nobody's going to care about MJF.
I don't think that's true, first of all. And second of all, I never said they had historic pay-per-views. I said they had good pay-per-views.
Okay, well, in a time where good is not great, you think that it's good that the company has subpar pay-per-views, that they're not subpar, they're just good. They're fine.
So everything has to be historic or it's shit?
No, but everything has to be solid.
Okay. And
that's all I'm saying is that's what Eric is pointing out about tomorrow.
I don't remember the last time they had a pay-per-view that wasn't solid.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I put you on the spot here by asking you to name matches and to go back, but I feel like, people don't talk about matches in their pay-per-views. People don't want to have conversations about AEW. and the matches. Like right now, I feel like the last match people are talking about more than anything else is MJF.
If you say Bryan versus Okada, I'm going to go into the phone.
Well, that's the best match in the company's history, so
Well,
probably.
it's not. It's not even the best match on its own pay-per-view.
Well, I mean,
we're not going to have that argument again.
There's lots of people that disagree with you. So
and there's lots of people that disagree with you. So
sure, but there's more people that agree that Bryan versus Okada is better. I mean, there was lots of polls put up on social media, and lots of people picked that match. Oh, why? Because Kenny and Will worked a stiff, unsafe match with an unsafe spot. The fact that that's okay for you to put one of the most generational talents ever in a position to get dropped on his head, that Bryan Danielson and the owner of the company both disagree with the spot.
I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm gonna interrupt you right here.
Okay.
Kenny Omega is that generational talent that you're talking about. He is a better professional wrestler than Bryan Danielson. And he felt safe doing it. So
that
therefore,
is not even close. Nobody on this planet thinks that that's true.
Okay. I don't think that's true.
Find me somebody that thinks Kenny's better than Bryan. Go ahead. Okay. You have a Twitter. You have an Instagram. You have a TikTok.
Put a poll up. Put a poll up. I bet it's closer than you think.
Why don't you put a poll up? Why don't you ask people? You don't know how to hit. So you're just going to make statements and then not be able to back it up? If Kenny Omega was Bryan Danielson, he would have main evented 2 WrestleManias.
He doesn't want to work for WWE.
Okay. If Kenny Omega was better than Bryan, then they wouldn't ask him to work Bryan at Wembley. They would ask him to work somebody else. They would have asked him to redo his match with Will Ospreay.
Okay. Well, then if that's the case, then if Bryan's better than Omega, they wouldn't ask him to work Omega at Wembley.
Well, Bryan's actually working creative. He's helping the company, something that Kenny and the EVPs won't do.
I believe they've worked creative.
You know that like your war against Bryan Danielson would be like somebody having a war against Shawn Michaels.
Because you just say everything that comes out of his mouth is the gospel.
I mean, the owner of the company just said something about him that was gospel.
If Kenny Omega feels like a spot is safe for him to do, then I trust him.
Okay, but the owner of the company, let's not talk about Bryan. Let's talk about the owner of the company that agreed that it was an unsafe spot and it shouldn't have been done. So you're telling me they own
and
who pays Kenny Omega's bill isn't allowed. You're telling me that the guy who pays Kenny's paycheck is not allowed to have an opinion?
To quote everyone on wrestling TikTok and Twitter, what the hell does Tony Khan know about wrestling?
I'll answer your question when you answer mine.
Sure, he's allowed to have an opinion. That doesn't mean he's right.
Okay. What version of Kenny Omega do you think is the best version?
Probably the cleaner.
Okay, the cleaner. What country did that work in?
Japan.
Okay. Who held Kenny back from making stupid mistakes like that? Was it Gato? Did he hold Kenny back from making stupid mistakes like dropping on his head? And would you not say, yes, he did. Kenny has said this in the past. He would tell him like, oh, I don't think that's a safe spot. I don't think that's a good spot. Doesn't fit your character. He reined him in a little bit. Kind of like, you don't need to go so far. You're already over. You don't need to go so crazy. Right?
Okay, and he's a legend.
But you just said, all right. But you just said that version of Kenny's the best Kenny.
Okay.
So if somebody reining him in, who's a legend in the sport, is telling him, hey, you don't need to do this. You know, and obviously, and here's the biggest thing. Obviously, Kenny didn't have a problem with Bryan Danielson saying it, because what we know from those 3 guys, the EVPs, is that when they disagree with a statement, they will go on Twitter or they'll leak it to Dave Meltzer that they have a problem with it. Nobody seems to have a problem with what Bryan said.
No, the Bucks will do that.
Okay.
And they maybe have more respect for Bryan than they do Punk. I don't know. Because Bryan handles his business a little differently.
Okay, so let me ask you a question before we move on to the card tomorrow.
Do we have
in the past couple of years, right? What wrestler more so than Bryan Danielson has more experience with head trauma?
What is that? To me, that doesn't have anything to do
What
with
part
it.
of the body did Kenny get dropped on? Was it his foot? Was it his knee? His back? What part of his body?
He's had head injuries. That doesn't make him an expert on.
You
He's
think
not a
that him
doctor.
getting back to the business and the amount of research and the amount of work that he did, that he wouldn't learn a thing or two about his head, about how to protect your head? He changed
not a
his
doctor.
whole style. It's not. You don't think he has communications with doctors? You don't think that he goes to doctors to make sure he's doing well? He's told us that that's part of his contract with AEW. He has to go get checked out once every
Right.
6 months to make sure everything's good. So he has constant communication with doctors. So he knows a thing or two about head injuries.
So if Bryan Danielson never says that, you're not spouting off about this unsafe spot.
I mean, Patrick agreed with me, and I believe that he's probably the smartest person that's not currently a professional wrestler that I've ever had a conversation with. I mean, he wrestled too.
I don't want to insult him because he's not here to defend himself, but isn't this the same guy who thinks Bret Hart sucks?
Yes, but that's also a work. That's the work people like you.
It's a work. It's not. He doesn't really think that.
No.
Okay.
If we got Bret Hart to come on,
see, I didn't know that. I thought it was legit.
I love you,
So-
Tyler. But if we got Bret Hart to come on this show, I would feel more comfortable interviewing Bret with Patrick than you, because I feel like you would be just like so harsh on Bret. It would be like Bret versus Goldberg.
I wouldn't be harsh. I wouldn't let him get away with a bunch of bullshit, but I wouldn't.
But you don't know it's bullshit. You would think that the appropriate thing to do would be to bring Bret Hart on here and to berate him.
No, I wouldn't berate him.
Okay. But how do you know it's bullshit? Like, who told you it's bullshit? Like, you've made comments like this before about Bret, and you've said this type of stuff. Like, how do you know what Bret is spewing is bullshit?
Because he says things and several other people say the opposite. So it's like
All right.
yeah.
I really want to move on to AEW, but before we do that, I want to just let you know. So Bret Hart makes a very outlandish. I'm going to go like this because I know you don't agree with the statement, because I know you've actually told me on one-on-one conversations you don't agree with this. SummerSlam, Bret says Davey Boy forgot the entire match, right?
I don't know if
Bret says.
I don't know if he did it or not. I think it's an asshole thing to do to say it after he's not here to defend himself.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of podcasts that talk about Davey Boy's WCW run and how he was brought in to WCW so that way he could help them get the European market. That was the point. That's why they tag him with Sting. They have that whole thing where Sting wears like the USA colors. He wears the Great Britain colors, right? They're wrestling guys like Sid Vicious and Vader. All right. So we know that, right? You're not going to question my credentials on knowing things about Sting, right? So,
No.
Okay. So in this time, you want to know what's one of the things that were mentioned? Why Davey Boy Smith couldn't get over in that time? He kept forgetting matches. He kept forgetting what was supposed to happen. There's actual pay-per-views where he tagged with Sting, and he would be standing in the middle of the ring, and he would forget what he was supposed to do. Bret Hart had
It's
nothing.
entirely possible. It's entirely possible this happened, but I just didn't think it was cool, especially to a family member, to do that years after he's gone and is not there to defend himself.
I get it,
I
but
thought it was a cheap shot.
We all have that family member that just wants to speak nothing but the truth and doesn't care. You know what I mean? Like, we all have that family member. For me, it was my Uncle JR. He just would not bite his tongue for anybody. I mean,
if you were dead, he wouldn't, just like, he didn't, like, it just didn't have to be said, is all.
I don't know. Maybe Bret Hart's part Puerto Rican. I don't know what to tell you. This is who he is.
Nobody asked,
I mean, he's writing a book. He's trying to get you to read it. I'm not saying that everything he said in there is factually correct, but I'm going to say that out of everybody he talks about in the book, I'm pretty sure he's telling the truth about Davey Boy Smith and Ric Flair. I'm going to say those two they're probably the truth. Or anything he said about Hogan. Because Hogan has proven time and time again that everything Bret said about him actually turned out to be true. So that's what I'm saying. As time goes on, what Bret Hart said in that book about certain wrestlers has turned out to be true.
Ric Flair.
Yeah. Lots of lots of things about Ric Flair have come out, Yeah,
but
Ric Flair
he doesn't say stuff like that. He says he's not a good worker, not a good performer.
Okay.
And that's just not true.
I mean, yes, that's the wrestling is subjective. You're allowed to like what you like.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
let's move on to this card, and we'll try our best to not bring up Eric Bischoff again, so that way Tyler doesn't,
or Bret Hart.
snap out.
Also, keep my mother's name out your mouth.
I mean, I was just asking what he did because it just made no sense to me. I honestly, it felt like I'm just curious. Like it, you know what it feels like? It feels like my hatred towards Donald Trump. I mean, the guy threw paper towels at the people in my country during a hurricane. I have a reason to hate him. I don't understand what the reasoning is for you to hate Eric Bischoff. I don't get it.
I don't hate him. I just think that he is being a hypocrite.
I think he's trying to help the company. I think he cares about a bunch of wrestlers that work in his company, specifically Sting, and he wants Sting to be successful in a company like this. He's dedicated 5 different podcasts in his one podcast. He's dedicated 5 different shows to this character that he helped create, that he helped get over when he was stale as the Surfer Sting. He's dedicated that much. He's said nothing but nice things about him. He wouldn't say anything about Sting's drug issue until Sting actually said it himself. Then he admitted to it. He held his word. He bit his tongue. I think he cares about people like Sting. And he doesn't, huh?
As long as he's tan.
Yeah, as long as he's tan. And I think he wants him to be successful. And I think there's other people he cares about. I mean, he definitely has nice things to say about, Adam Cole. He has nice things to say about, House of Black. He does say nice things. He seems to really enjoy Kenny Omega. So it's not like he hates the whole company.
I haven't heard that. I've only heard him say negative things. To me, he was like more restrained Jim Cornette.
I mean, yeah, he hates CM Punk. I would say that the most personal
for no
thing,
reason.
I mean, CM Punk just rubs some people the wrong way. But let's jump into AEW All In from Wembley Stadium, 82,000 people in attendance. Let's start with what I believe will possibly be the opening match, Hook versus Jack Perry.
It should be. I liked their first match on Dynamite. I don't see why this one would be any worse.
So who are you picking as the winner?
I think the way it's been booked, it has to be Hook.
Agreed. I think Tony Khan is all about sending people home happy. He doesn't want people to go home with questions. I don't think he believes in heel heat. We should have started with a pre-show because God forbid. All right, I'm not going to get into my honest opinions about this. We're going to go with Aussie Open versus
I would like to hear what you think about this.
I think it's stupid.
Excited for this match.
I think it's dumb.
You think it's dumb? Why?
I think it makes zero sense that you have the 2 people in the main event and you put them out there to curtain jerk the show off pay-per-view. By the way, it's going to be a pre-show match. Working the Aussie Open. I don't understand the logic in this.
Why do you say it the Aussie Open like that? Like there was a little stink on that.
I just don't understand what we're getting out of this match. What does this do for Adam Cole and MJF?
What did it do for Chris Benoit and Edge to wrestle La Resistance? To open Bad Blood in 2004 before Benoit defended the title against King.
Tyler, are you comparing this match to another show where the 2 people that tagged were not wrestling each other in the main event? Because that doesn't make any sense to that doesn't compute in my brain.
But there are similarities.
In what way? In what way is Edge and Jericho or Edge and Benoit tagging and then Benoit wrestling Kane have anything to do with MJF tagging and then MJF versus Adam Cole at the end of I don't understand.
The guy defending the title later in the night has another match where he's wrestling for a tag title. The only difference is it's not with his opponent.
Okay. So you think, what about this match are you excited about? Just the potential of a good wrestling match?
Exactly.
Okay. Who you're picking?
Aussie Open.
Okay.
Shenanigans, some sort of miscommunication leads to tension.
I'm going to go with better than you. I think they're going to win. I think the plan is to ride MJF and Adam Cole out till Christmas.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it's anywhere near over.
Okay.
I think they see money in the story and they're going to continue to ride it. That's yeah. House of Black versus the Acclaimed and the resurgence of badass Billy Gunn.
So that is added to the pay-per-view?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to just pick all baby faces, but like again, it kind of sets up like they have to win, right?
I guess I'm going with House of Black.
That's what I think should happen, but they've just made the Acclaim kind of look less than without Billy. So then with Billy coming back, you would think, I don't know. I think House of Black should win. I just think that, again, the baby faces have been booked to a point that if they don't win, they look like shit.
Okay. All right. So we have.
Maybe I do have problems with their booking.
Okay. Darby Allin and Sting versus Swerve Strickland and Christian Cage. Who you got?
So it's Christian, not Luchasaurus.
That's what it says here.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. I think it's Christian and Swerve because Darby is wrestling Luchasaurus at All Out.
Okay. I'm picking Sting and Darby. I think they're going to continue. This is just my opinion based on what I'm watching. I think they're going to continue to build Sting as this like undefeated guy in this company for him ultimately to wrestle his last match against Darby Allin and put him over. That's what I see happening.
Makes a lot of sense. So you could be right.
Okay. Samoa Joe versus CM Punk.
Punk.
I'm going with Joe.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think.
I would love to see it. I mean, Joe hasn't been given a major title, a chance to run with it, so I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. Either one of these guys feuding with MJF, I think they both torch his ass in the microphone, so it's fine.
I just think he's like the worst talker in the business.
No, I just think that both of these guys
you bring up is going to torch him.
I just think that these two are original when they talk on the mic and they don't need to rely on low-hanging fruit and cheap heat. Are you going to disagree that that's what MJF does?
He's so good at it.
Okay. Well, I didn't say he wasn't. I just think that I prefer originality over cheap heat. That's just my preference.
Is Samoa Joe original? Like the last... Pretty much, I've only seen him cut promos about people's wives.
Really? That Jeff Hardy promo doesn't stick out in your brain. Okay. That Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar promo doesn't stick out.
No, that does not actually. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you should go back and
watch
that.
Jeff Hardy one, yes. The Jeff Hardy one, yes.
Okay. In my most anticipated match of the evening, the Stadium Stampede match, I'm looking forward to. We have the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, Eddie Kingston, Penta El Zero Miedo versus BCC and Proud and Powerful. I will be rocking my Proud and Powerful t-shirt tomorrow, and that is who I'm going for. Santana and Ortiz. And John Moxley and the other two schmoes on the team.
Can I make a bold prediction?
Sure.
John Moxley will bleed.
Well, I mean, he's going to have to get clearance because now it's illegal to do that in the company. It's a part of one of the banned things.
Yeah, if only.
Well, it's a part of it. You got to follow the rules. He hasn't bled since that judgment came out.
Has he wrestled?
Yeah. What are you talking about? He's wrestled the past couple weeks.
I guess I missed him. I've just never seen him wrestle without bleeding. But yeah, I think they win. The other team just feels a little disjointed. Like they maybe wouldn't have the best chemistry. Mind you, it is pretty much just a street fight. So this is pinfall or submission? Pinfall or submission, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be a fun match. The other ones have been.
Yeah. I'm picking Will Ospreay over Chris Jericho. Who you got?
I certainly hope so.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is Jericho, so I would not be surprised if he won.
I mean,
would it shock you if he wins the match tomorrow?
Yes. He's put over Adam Cole. He put over Ricky Starks. He put over Action Andretti. The last match I remember him winning was the 4-way for the ROH title at Full Gear, and that was last November.
Okay. I'm just saying. He seems like somebody that would win this match and go on his podcast on Tuesday and tell everybody, of course I'm going to win this match. I'm Chris Jericho. Everybody knows me. They don't know Will Ospreay because it makes total sense.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If you hadn't seen that photo, would your opinion of Chris Jericho be what it is?
Would he still make that comment about AJ Styles at WrestleMania? Would he still make that comment about Adam Page? Would he still make that comment?
You were still a Chris Jericho fan until you saw
that about his wife?
Yeah. That's when it changed.
I mean, I do think it's messed up his wife's not in prison. Yeah.
Depends what she did, I guess.
Okay.
All I've seen is her standing outside, so I don't know.
Well, some of our brother podcasts on here are political. If you want, you can talk to D, and he can. If you want to have political conversations, I don't want to.
No, I don't want to get into it. I was just curious if that was the reasoning, or if it was.
No, I mean, I think if his quality of matches stayed like the same, I think I would feel like, oh yeah, Jericho's like he's still killing it. But the fact that he goes out there now and I don't understand the necessity for him to go out there and wrestle. Like this match tomorrow is going to be like a 30-minute match. That's not going to be. They're not going to work like an 11-minute match. And I think it's unfair to put all of the pressure on Will Ospreay to carry this whole match.
And you don't think it's possible at all that he grew up looking up to Chris Jericho and wanted to have this match?
I find that so weird how that's acceptable to you, but then I show you a picture of Carlos Rendon being happy that he signed with the New York Yankees, and you're like, I hate that these guys need to point stuff out like they grew up a fan of this company or this team.
No. What I hate about that is every time they buy a superstar, you point out, well, he was a Yankee fan as a kid.
Yeah. They haven't bought
to cover up for the fact that they're trying to buy championships, which they're still failing at. So,
okay, well, when was the last time your team won a World Series?
When
was the last time your team made a World Series?
Okay, so you still haven't won. It doesn't matter.
Oh wow! Didn't you guys have to send a pitcher to Philadelphia so he could make it to the World Series, and then he had a better career in Philadelphia?
I don't think
isn't the most important thing about your baseball team is the fact that one of your outfielders got punched in the head by a Texas Ranger? All right, so the next match on the card here is
you don't just get to do that. No.
All right, come on now, go ahead. You don't like Eric Bischoff, but now you want to be like him. That's a shot, brother. That's a shot.
Yeah, it's a shot. Exactly. Just like the cheap shot that Ruff and Odor took.
That was not a cheap shot. He deserved
after the cheap shot that they threw at him because it was the last time they'd have to face him all year.
Maybe
because they were boo-boo face because he beat their ass.
Did Did they win? Did the Blue
Rangers
Jays win?
Against the Rangers? Yes, twice.
Okay.
Two years in a row in the playoffs. The second time in a sweep.
But nobody remembers that. Everybody remembers the punch, though.
Okay, that's great. It was a cheap shot. Sucker punch for no reason.
It's a street fight. What do you think that
it shouldn't have been a street fight? There should have been no fight. Batista shouldn't even have been on base. They intentionally hit him because it was the last time they would face him that year.
Well, that's what you do in baseball.
He beat them. Because he beat them.
What's the difference between throwing?
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, I'm going to say that the sport you love where there's ballerinas on the ice that throw their gloves off, like, that's stupid that they have to throw their gloves off to fight. Like, why are you fighting on the ice? Now, what's the difference? You're telling me that only your sport's allowed to have fistfights?
Fighting on the ice is generally retaliation for something dirty that's been done physically.
Well, I'm just saying Batista.
The only person who had any right to be upset because of something done to them physically was Batista.
Well, you know what's really weird? Nobody wants Batista. I think it's really
He's
weird.
Like 1,000 years old.
Yeah, but nobody wanted him after that either. They was just like, nah, we don't want you.
He just signed a one-day contract with the Jays so he could retire where he belonged.
Okay. Well, I mean, God rest his soul. I don't think Roy Halladay retires a Blue Jay.
He did, actually.
On his authority?
He signed a one-day contract so he could retire as a Blue Jay.
Well, he probably did that just so people wouldn't boo him. Because I don't see anything he did and I don't see anything that the Blue Jays did for him that made him retire there. He should have retired at the place that he pitched the perfect game 1 of the World Series.
That wasn't game 1 of the World Series, buddy. It was the first game of the playoffs.
Oh, well, however it works.
He
made it to the playoffs with another team, and then he pitches a perfect game. That's pretty cool.
Cy Youngs as a J. So,
yeah, there are. I mean, yeah, sure. Me and you were just talking wrestling on a podcast, but professional athletes tell us that they prefer playoff wins to anything they get in the regular season. But sure, you're right. Okay. His Cy Youngs for a losing team mean more than playoff wins.
They gave him his opportunity, and he probably had his kids there and met his wife there, and maybe he has a little bit of an affinity for the place.
Sure. I mean, yeah, whatever. I mean, I don't think anybody cares about the Blue Jays.
Okay, well, they're going to probably make playoffs this year. How about the Yankees?
Yeah, that'd be great. Make the playoffs.
There's only a couple people in the league that were even alive the last time they were this bad.
What, the Yankees?
Yeah.
I mean, most people my age, the Yankees have been this bad before.
Right. I think they said there were 2 players, maybe it was in the game today, that were alive the last time they lost 9 in a row or whatever.
Well, I mean, this is what happens when you pull a guy out of the booth to come in and run your team who doesn't know how to coach. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
You realize this is not getting posted at this point, right?
Yeah, of course it is. So anyway, back to the Golden Elite versus Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Takeshita. I don't know if you can classify them as Bullet Club Gold just because I don't know if Takeshita is Bullet Club Gold, but who are you rooting for here?
Who am I rooting for? Probably the Golden Elite, but I think this match is going to be a banger.
Sure, of course. I mean, you have Kenny Omega, you have Hangman Adam Page, you have Ibushi, Jay White, Takeshita, and Juice Robinson. I think the 6 of them are just going to tear the house down. I think this is one of those feel-good matches. I think for sure Golden Elite wins.
Yeah, if that's what they're going for, then yeah.
Yeah, I don't
know if they're anything for business, but okay.
All right.
I don't know that it's great to have Jay White losing all the time.
He's fine. Okay. He'll be a world champion within a year. He'll be fine. Moving on to the women's world title match. I believe that the right winner should be Saraya. I think this will be a great story. I think she's a moneymaker. I think that the women's division has fallen so hard in AEW that Tony Khan has no choice but to put the title on Britt Baker. I don't think he has a choice. I think it's forced because she's the biggest name in that division, and I think the title has just kind of fallen at the wayside. It doesn't really mean anything.
Britt Baker is a bigger name than Saraya?
Yes, at this point, yes.
The woman has a movie about her life.
Okay. What does that have to do with anything in 2023? She actually has 2 movies about her life.
Okay, but she has a mainstream movie about her life in this country.
Yes, she has a mainstream movie and a biography, an autobiography about her entire family. She has 2 movies about her life.
I understand.
Yes.
But one of them is only in England, right? Like it's not in wide release is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess when we sign off here, I can check and see if it's on YouTube. Because now I kind of want to fall asleep to that, watching that tonight. I think that'd be pretty cool.
We're doing another podcast in 9 hours.
Yeah, I don't sleep a lot. Yeah, so when I look at this match, I just kind of look at it as I think it's been set up for Saraya to win, but I have no idea why Britt Baker's in this match, and the only thing I could think of is that she's going to win it. Because
they just think they wanted the 4 biggest stars in the division in the match, and that's what they did.
Maybe you're right.
These would be the 4 biggest stars, right?
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. Clearly, I just said that. I mean, obviously, Tony, the only 2-time women's champ. The people that marked the fuck out when Sheeta won the title. I mean, people were very happy. And obviously, Saraya. So who's your pick? I'm going with Britt. You're going with Saraya. Okay.
While we're on the subject of that match, I did want to, because you like to point out Britt Baker answering people's tweets.
Yeah.
I thought she did a better job. Someone said, "Oh, that match is going to be a botch fest or something," and she said, "Just glad you're excited to see women's wrestling. Enjoy the show," or something like that. Which I think, if you're going to respond, is better than what she typically does. Good.
Well, good for her. It's about time she grew up. All right, so moving on to the
same day as the comment about the podcast.
Yeah, well, I mean, she has to answer these Twitter trolls because somebody told her that this makes sense. I mean, people talk shit about Adam Cole all the time, talk about his weight all the time, and you never hear him answer any of these people. And he's one of the most over guys in the wrestling business. It's weird how she's literally living with a guy who shows her how to handle this type of stuff, and she chooses to do it her way. So just so weird. The co-main event of the evening, FTR versus the Young Bucks. Who do you have winning? I will say, you said this about the trios match with the Golden Elite and the Bullet Club Gold. I think this has potential if done correctly and not overproduced. I think this has potential to steal the card. Sure,
absolutely. I think FTR wins because I don't think the Bucks want to work full time.
Well, I do find it interesting that I don't know if you've noticed this about AEW, but they do a really good job of foreshadowing. And they kind of like leak little things like during video packages, like most recently their FTR video package about them going down as the greatest tag team of all time, right? And after they beat the Young Bucks, it kind of solidified. I mean, they couldn't beat the Usos, but sure. I feel like it's set up for FTR to win this match. But I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't give a shit about this match. I feel like we've seen it a lot. I don't know why it's co-main event here. I wouldn't be
twice.
I feel like, but I feel like I've seen it like twice is enough. I just kind of feel like it's one of those matches where it's like it was thrown on the card to get people invested because the Young Bucks have a universal audience and nobody knows who FTR is except for the people that live in the States. So
I don't know about that. They did a tour of England not that long ago because the Cult of Life people were talking about it. If they wish they had gone the second night because they wrestled Aussie Open.
oh wow. Well, I mean, sure. Yeah, so I'm taking the Mini Heart Foundation as the winners too. I think that they're possibly going to win this match. Yeah, so I'll go with that. And now the main event of the evening, the reason that we're all watching this show, the one match that has been built perfectly on this entire card, MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman versus Adam Cole, who is walking out the World Heavyweight Champion.
MJF wins. They go to hug, and Cole pulls a Chris Jericho WrestleMania 19.
Nice. I think MJF is about to win, and some undisputed members make some appearances, and Adam Cole walks out world champ. And as MJF is asking him kind of what's going on, Adam Cole turns. I think the idea is to keep Max as a... Huh?
Hits him with a super kick or something.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe Roderick Strong, gives him a backbreaker of some kind. I don't know. The guy's very innovative with backbreakers. And
Roderick Strong bores him to death.
Well, that's unnecessary. Poor guy. I mean, he's a solid worker. Seems like a lot of people enjoy working him.
He is a solid worker.
Yeah, I think this show, I'm looking forward to this show. I'm very excited to watch it in a couple hours, 12 hours from now. So jeez. I guess we'll see. Yeah, show starts at 1 o'clock.
England?
Yeah.
Show starts at 12 o'clock, actually.
Yeah, that's right. The pre-show, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I'm very excited to see Proud and Powerful back. Those are some of the things that stick out to me. Once it was mentioned to me that Sting has never competed in front of an audience this big, now I feel like I need to see this because I want to see my all-time favorite wrestler wrestle in front of an audience this big. I want to see the way he's wrestled over these past 4 years. I want to see if he's willing to do something crazier. I just want to point out, I hate the fact that people praise Mick Foley and Terry Funk for changing their style and becoming a hardcore performer later. And now Sting does it. And it's like, that dude needs to retire. Like, it's like, what?
I think the reason for that is because of the injury he suffered and people don't want to see him further that.
I think Sting is one of those people. I don't think
it's anything against Sting.
No, I know, but I feel like that's the negative sentiment that I hear about Sting all the time was that he should retire, and I just don't agree with that. I feel like he's good for business.
I think he's been great.
So before we go here, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes because we're hitting that 2 hour mark. But I want to say before we go here, I would like to wrap up with you telling me, do you feel like there's any wrestlers that are missing off of this card that should be on this card? If you can add a couple of wrestlers to this show that you feel like would be better suited than some of the workers that are on the show now, what wrestlers would you have added to this card?
Okay. I would potentially replace Chris Jericho with Sammy Guevara as a conversation that we've had.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
You want to talk about unsafe, but it would be a spectacle. That's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking of anyone. At least anyone that has been involved in anything that would warrant them being on the show. Am I missing something?
Yeah, I didn't know if you thought that there should have been like a
maybe a women's like a TBS title match.
That's where I was going.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that.
With
like I feel
I
like
guess they could do that. They're doing that at All Out though, right? But they could do Willow.
They are doing that. Chris Statlander and Ruby Soho.
Yeah, so that maybe that's why it's not on this one. Although I don't know why they couldn't do both, and then like you want to talk about a show that's not well built. That's a week away, and I don't know any of the matches.
What? Yeah, but I think they needed this show to wrap up before they can build that. I don't think their intention. All right. So, full disclosure, we need to point this out. Yes, but we need to point this out for the audience. This show was not supposed to be a pay-per-view. This was supposed to be a live house show for London. Once it started selling the amount of tickets it did, and they opened up the revenue, they opened up the ticket sales, then they were like, okay, this might be a possibility for Max, for it to be on HBO Max, right? Remember that rumor came out that it might be streaming on Max? And then they got it. They got the pay-per-view rights for it, and then it got put on Bleacher Report. But the original intention for this show was to use this show to build next week's show. And now we have two pay-per-views back to back, and I personally am only paying for one. So
me too. I'm not even gonna be in the country next week, so
yeah. So we're definitely not doing that. So yeah. Anyway, other than that, we look forward to watching the show with you. We look forward to our Bray Wyatt show tomorrow, guys. So please be on the lookout for that. And yeah, we'll let you go since it's 1:00 in the morning. We're out.